With my 35 years of experience, our team at US Asset Management can deliver professional investment management, financial planning to help you target your goals, and even specialized divorce financial analysis if you need it. We are here to help you make better decisions with your money. Call US Asset Management today and let's get to work in your financial future. Do you already have your investments with Fidelity? I'm David Cross with US Asset Management. Did you know that you can assign your investment management to my team and put my 35 years of experience to work for you? You simply assign us as your investment manager and you keep the same username and password. Professional management, and you get to work with someone who shares your values. Call US Asset Management today and put us to work for you.
What happens in Georgia gets revealed one by one as the facts are unsealed. From the pit comes what they don't want you to see. When the daily nugget of truth is dropped with your host, BKP.
All right, folks, we're back. I'm your host, BKP, and you're watching BKP Politics on voiceofruralamerica.com. This is our second part to our Georgia special legislative session that just wrapped up yesterday under the Gold Dome here in Georgia. This is our second part that we're going to talk about now, SB 3X, the election bill. Now, when I started in the first segment, when we talked about the special session, the first segment, we talked about the redistricting. This one here, as I mentioned before, this is a struggle because, and I'm going to tell you why. This is a struggle. Wait a minute, let me find out where I'm at here. Because I want to make sure that everything that we talk about, bear with me just a second here, that I think we have it. All right. You know, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and expecting different results. And I had someone, as we start to talk about SB 3EX, that's the third bill for the executive session called by the governor. And we all know about SB 189, right? We know about SB 189, and we know that the QR code was supposed to be gone July 1st, according to SB 189. And we have enough back and forth on why it was never removed. And we have the gold ribbon panel on election procedures that took place with Victor Anderson and Tim Fleming, who is now the nominee for Secretary of State. That happened with John Burns, Speaker of the House, put together. And we had the last legislative session, we had the SB 568. Was it 568? I didn't look that up, but SB 568 for paper ballots that we never had the votes to. We'll get to that in a minute. And then the House passed SB 214. Now, SB 214 went over to the Senate and died. Remember that? SB 214 went at the last minute to the Senate, and the Senate did not try to put it into a committee and pass it out or anything to adopt it. It died. SB 214. Now, there's a lot of resemblance to SB 214 and what they just did, meaning what the House passed before, they basically came close to doing it again. They moved the QR code out to January 1st, 2028. We'll discuss that in a minute. on the ballot. So I'm going to be very clear. There's three. I will get into the Georgia GOP tomorrow. But today there's three particular organizations that I'm going to make comment on. I want to look at the camera, because what will happen is people will start spinning what I say, and it won't be people that have watched the program and take things out of context. So I want to make it to where no one can take it out of context. In all three organizations, and I'll pick one at a time, I know very good people that are involved in the organizations that I care a lot about. I have a lot of feelings for, I care about, I would do anything for. But we cannot gloss over that it's time to discuss these organizations. And it's not about the people, it's about a person or two. So let's get started. Now, on your, and I'm going to bring this back up tomorrow, but on your ballot, when you went to vote, you were asked a question. Now, if you pulled a Republican primary ballot in May 19th, if you pulled a Republican primary ballot, the Republican Party, through state committee, executive committee, I forget exactly how they do it, but they create questions because they want you, the Republican primary voters, to give them some direction on how the body feels, what you think, what they need to work on, what they need to go tell lawmakers. Hey, here's what, your party thinks and what we would like to have done. So you get questions. Now, if you went on May 19th, you were asked this question. Primary ballot, the Georgia Republican Party includes several non-binding advisory questions. The first question on that list focused on election integrity. So everybody in the state that pulled a primary Republican ballot on May 19th answered this question. Here is the exact language that appeared on the ballot. Exact language. Should Georgia enact the strongest election integrity measures possible? Did that happen? Which may include hand-marked paper ballots. Did that happen? Fines for counties that refuse to maintain current voter rolls, and restrictions on no-excuse absentee voting to restore trust in elections. So in general, that was the question. Now, the measure passed with overwhelmingly support among Republican primary voters. Yes, 825,000. I know we had low turnout, but keep this in mind. 825,626 voters, 90% said yes. Only 10%, 91,880 said no. Only 10%. 90% said yes. All right. Because this was an advisory question, it does not actually change state law or mandate new policies. Political parties use these type of non-binding questions to act essentially as a massive formal opinion poll to gauge where their voters' priorities and guide their legislative agenda. Right? So that's what lawmakers know that. See, Republican lawmakers in the Senate and Republican lawmakers in the House, they went and pulled a primary ballot. My question is, wonder how many in the Senate, Republicans and House, pulled that May 19th primary ballot and voted no or voted yes. We should ask them, well, how did you vote on this question? Because you sure did not legislate according to the 90%. So let's move on. This is Mark Davis. Now, I don't have time to go into great detail of Mark Davis, but you can find his Substack, you can find his work. I'm absolutely tired. I'm completely tired of anyone going on social media attacking Mark Davis. All right. He has been doing this for 30 some years. He's a data analyst. He's a specialist. He knows what he's doing. He is doing things now to try to be involved in the next Secretary of State's administration. Now, you're not hearing me say he took a job. You didn't hear that. But I know he is working to try to help get Tim Fleming elected and help in the administration. I say help. But I'm absolutely tired, sick and tired of social media calling him a rhino. You don't know him, attacking him. He is a conservative, and he's the one that put this out. And no, he's much like ourselves. He's not excited about this piece of legislation. You know what Mark Davis knows? It's called "This Is Where We're At." He has the ability to focus and have self-control to the fact that he knows where we're at. This is where we're at. I mean, I have said before, if you want a Democrat Secretary of State and you want to attack Tim Fleming, go for it. But if you want a Democrat Secretary of State, why don't you go watch the runoff primary debate for Democrat Secretary of State? Penny Brown, whoa, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Got it? So he knows where we're at. Now, he posted this. Should Georgia enact the strongest? He posted the question, and he put it up right there. Mark Davis did. So now, this started coming out after this legislation because people are not excited about what just happened. So, with redistricting shelved, Georgia lawmakers focus on a vote counting mess. So let's get into it. Here is the final passage. This is the final passage on June 23rd at 12:06 p.m. yesterday. They agreed to the House substitute. So we get down there, and there's a bill already in place by Max Burns. And he introduces the bill. And then it goes to committee. It goes to the Ethics Committee, the Senate Ethics Committee. Now, the bill that he proposes, rumor, I know you don't like it, but Georgia politics has a real heavy rumor mill. Rumor is the House wrote the bill. That's the rumor. And that no lawmakers, the senators, did not see the bill until they got there. Now, if your state senator tells you different, I know what their famous line is. That guy up in North Georgia, he'll lie to you. No, that's not true. Find the ones that'll whisper the truth to you. Because what's being said is the original one that just said, hey, QR codes. Now, we're going to break that down. They moved to 2028, January 1st. They're going to be on the ballot. And here's another thing we're going to do. We're going to create this equipment study group to put together a report. Democrat lawmakers are saying, what happens if they don't put the report together? But they assembled this group. No minority participation from Democrats. That's okay, but it's a fact. Rumor is the House wrote the bill, sent it over to Max Burns, said this is what you're going with. You present it, get it out of committee, vote on it, get it back to us. We're going to vote on it, and we're going home. Got it? Going home. Don't cause no problems. Well, so It was all supposed to just go, nobody get worked up. I understand senators, they arrived at the Gold Dome with no knowledge of this bill. So Max Burns, here is the final passage. This is the agree to the House substitute. But keep in mind, the House ran this the whole time. Everything about this. So Max Burns takes it into committee. This thing's a disaster. QR code moved out. Create a study committee for the next equipment. The word equipment. The original bill never had the word paper ballots in there. It said the next equipment that we would use for elections. And guess what? Max Burns goes in and introduces it like it's the greatest thing. I don't care for Max Burns. I do not. Senator Max Burns, I have very little use for. All right. And here it is right here. Now, I wrote a Substack. You can go watch the Substack. I laid this out last week when the original bill came out, and this is at the Ethics Committee. And I even showed you where Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger was bragging on Max Burns. And what this had, it had under the Gold Dome betrayal. If you go to my Substack, Vora, V-O-R-A, BKP Politics, under the Gold Dome betrayal, how the GOP just locked in QR codes until 2028, the QR code bait and switch, how the grassroots got played at the Capitol. All right. I wrote this on June 18th. Now, Max Burns goes to committee, Ethics Committee of the Senate, and he pronounces this. I think it's Sam Watson, the chair, State Senator Sam Watson. I don't know, look it up. And he presents this like it's the greatest bill and, you know, it's going to get us where we need to be. I mean, he's full of absolute garbage. Full of absolute garbage. Now, the problem on our side is we've been working with Max Burns for God knows how long, and we've been working on the Senate side for God knows how long, and the House has never give us the time of day. Truthfully, some members of the House, good people, won't debate that today. But for the most part, we've had to go through the Senate. And they've always sent us through Max Burns. And he's condescending, and this will work. So, how does it pass? 8-4, party line. So in the Senate, this bill that we hear came out of the House goes to the committee and passes party line. 8 Republicans put their name on this. 8 Republicans put their name on this. And then they take it back to vote on it. But before they do, explosion hits. You and I. Now, I'm going to show you what happened. Explosion hit. Major. There was an effort across the state from a select group, I'll call it that we were peppering. Greg Dolezal, we were peppering state senators. I mean, really. And we were trying to do it, when I say this respectfully. So what happened on Saturday morning is state, they whooped everything up into a frenzy, and we started whipping our own votes. And don't take this wrong, not Greg Dolezal. We did. When I say we, I don't want to start putting out names because I'll forget somebody and it's not fair. But we started telling them vote no, vote no, vote no. You got to vote no. And I spoke to several. I'll share that. I'm not going to speak for others. So we put pressure on them. And then voter GA, Sam Carnline, Phil Field Searcy, several of them, they put the word out, rally at the Capitol Saturday morning. This was Saturday morning. And they had a great group out there, a really great group of election integrity people that were there to talk to lawmakers. So there was so much pressure that lawmakers, right, they called their caucus. This is state senators. They called their caucus meeting early to avoid the people down at the Gold Dome so they couldn't talk to them. And they come up with this right here. They come up with this right here, and it was going around being called the Dolezal Amendment to the bill. Now, the Dolezal Amendment dealt with recounts, and it made it mandatory. We're gonna just paraphrase this. It made it mandatory to recount U.S. Senate, the top races, before certification. Mandatory recounts. And here's where it was being called the Dolezal Amendment. Now, Greg Dolezal, running for lieutenant governor, he is the Republican nominee. And I'm going to say this right now, all right? The lieutenant governor's race needs to be silent. Needs to be silent. It does not need to be the race that gets press. It doesn't need to be the race that gets the most attraction. It does not need to be the race that could affect anything else. We need to have a U.S. Senate race, Mike Collins, Governor Rick Jackson. Behind that, the ticket needs to be running their election, but not doing anything to put themselves out in front of the ticket in a negative light. And I told you that all along. I told you that all along and what would take place. Now, you knew this QR code was getting moved. You knew it, right? You knew it. I know it. The American people know it. Everybody in Georgia knew they were going to move the QR code. We put that in the Substack last week. If you go read what I put out last week, we knew that. So keep this in mind. The Senate, which includes Greg Dolezal, who gave all those speeches right on the floor. He gave all those passionate speeches on the floor. He put up SB 568, knowing they didn't have the votes, right? The paper ballot, knowing they didn't have the votes. All those passionate speeches he gave from the floor, right? About elections. The tape is out there. Democrats have it. The tape is out there. Keep in mind, Republican senators, including Greg Dolezal, you would think Greg Dolezal would have said, hey, I got a lot at stake here. I mean, I got a lot at stake. I can't vote for moving the QR codes. I can't do it. I can't run to the center and forget everything I said. It's on tape. So you need to tell me, what are we doing? So I don't know this for a fact, but Greg Dolezal had to have agreed in principle to move the original piece of legislation forward. You got to remember, that's the original. If that would have went through and you would not have, because they knew you were going to explode. They knew it all along that you were going to explode. Well, guess what? They could save Greg Dolezal. He could come out and say, I'm not voting for it. I won't vote for it. I'm a no vote. We have enough no votes against this. That's what they started putting out, we got no votes. The caucus is upset. This amendment to that bill was ready. It did not, they did not get this ready at 8:00 in the morning because you got upset after the ethics committee passed the first piece with the QR code out of committee. They didn't work all night long to put this amendment together and have it. They didn't do it. I'm of the strong opinion they didn't do it. They knew this was going to happen. So it was put together, presented, and guess what? This is where I'm going to start. And this is where I drew the line the other day. I absolutely drew the line. I have watched you drive. I have watched you drive for hours to state election board meetings. I've watched you drive all over the state. I watched you pack every one of the blue ribbon panel election procedure hearings, research meetings. I watched you. I watched you go down to Atlanta. I watched you call press conference after press conference. I watched you do it. Non-stop. You've worked yourself. And you know what? What is the accomplishment? Look me in the eye and tell me what you got. Tell me what you accomplished. Because they come out from the Senate, it said we're getting recounts. But the QR code stayed on there. Right? And you're still voting on Dominion voting machines. Greg Bluestein called me, I think it was Thursday, for a quote, Friday morning, whatever, or Saturday. I don't know. I said, look, at the end of the day, they can put recounts in there. They can do whatever they want. But when we get done, guess what? We get finished. The bottom line is the people are still going to go vote on a Dominion voting machine with QR codes on their ballot. End of story. And they're not happy. But I have seen this develop for years, and it just came to a head. And it's for you, it's not me. That what I'm about to say is going to anger so many of you. At me. But I'll take it. I will take it. Now, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. So, first of all, let's go with voter GA. Now, I've told you the background. I've known Garland maybe 15 years now, Garland Favorito. All right. I actually sit here today and I think Garland is a good person. I'm not personally angry with Garland. You out there in voter GA membership, there's so many of you that are amazing people. Amazing people. You've worked so hard. So hard. All right. But I'm going to tell you now, you need new leadership. You should ask for Garland Favorito's resignation immediately. Garland Favorito should no longer, and I will not be supporting Garland Favorito, he should no longer be leading voter GA. But you're very good people. Now let me tell you why, because this is not going to be ugly and attacking. After Saturday, when that amendment came out, I know this for a fact. I'm going to show you some stuff. I know this for a fact, right? They did this knowing they would go out and get people to carry the water for them. So when they passed that for the recounts, Garland Favorito was the one that had to come out and tell you it's okay, we move the ball. Now, if you go back to my podcast, Thursday, I think it was, I made a prediction. I told you. I made this prediction on the Georgia show with Bill Quinn, with Todd Wood. I made this prediction. I said they'll move the QR code, end of story, but they'll give us some crumbs. I said that the other day. They give you some crumbs. I told you, here's what's going to happen. All right, they're going to move the QR code, period. We all know that. But they're going to give you a couple crumbs. And then they're going to ask Garland Favorito to help feed you the crumbs. Now, I'm tired of that. I'm tired of that. All right? Absolutely tired of him coming out and selling we moved the ball. So this right here. Thank you, Republican senators, for passing a historic voting system security amendment. Voter GA. Now, folks, if Garland Favorito wants to put that out, but if you're voter GA, I don't know how your structure works. This would infuriate me to see this. And here is another one. Here's his press release. Now, keep in mind, he's doing this. QR codes are on there. You're voting on a Dominion voting machine. And I'm going to show you because people are going to say, well, wait a minute. They told Garland X. But I know better. I know better. Georgia Senate passes historic hand recount voting security law. Right? Here is voter GA again. Garland Favorito. Today, the Georgia Senate passed a historic nonpartisan amendment to a bill we originally opposed. A bill we originally opposed. Now, the reason I bring this up is he's always been the one to come out and carry the water for them to you. They actually asked Garland, what do we need to do for your people? And I have to tell you, I told several of them, let's be very clear, Garland Favorito does not speak for me. Does not. We should, if you're going to keep doing this over and over, you're going to keep getting the same results. You're going to. What do you do? I get calls all the time. What do? We clean this slate now. We clean this slate now because reality is we don't have another shot at anything until 2027. And the next shot we could have a Democrat governor. We could have a Democrat lieutenant governor. We could have whatever, Rick Jackson governor. But our next shot's 2027. And it cannot be with these people because you see the state legislators as the bad side of this. But you keep accepting certain things as the good side, and all they're after is self-preservation. That's it. These people are after self-preservation. They're after self-gratification. They're after, I don't want to say enriching themselves because I don't know how much they make and when and how. That's not, but you understand what I'm saying? It's not about you. Everything I'm about to tell you, if you feel it's about you, then you're stuck in there. Keep going. But if you want to make serious change and you want to say something's bad wrong here, when voter GA comes out and says, hey, we moved the ball, we did something historic, a bill we originally didn't support, no. No more, because I'm going to give you some more examples. Today, the Georgia Senate passed a historic nonpartisan amendment to a bill we originally opposed. The simple amendment proposes to hand count the 2 races in each election to ensure the voting system results are accurate prior to certification. For the first time since unverified electronic voting came to Georgia in 2002, a hand count law can now help county election superintendents ensure that voting system results are certified or actually correct. It is hard for those not involved in legislation process to understand. See, it's hard for you not to understand. because you're not involved in the legislative process. Our problem is he's been too involved. Our problem is we've accepted too much out of him. Our problem is he's gone in there and his existence is most important. And they come to him and say, hey, can you sell this for us? Someone's going to say, well, that's not the quote. Okay, we won't call it the quote. But they say, hey, Garland, can you get this to your people? Yes, I'll tell them they don't understand legislative process. All right. How difficult it is to get common sense provisions such as this passed into law. So they encouraged supporting these people. They encouraged it. Now, Saturday morning, when I got this right here, I'm going to share something with you. So I was not there Saturday, but God knows I was in this battle. All right. I have it here. I'm going to share it with you. So I was texting, and the people can give their names if they want to. I was texting people all morning long because I was texting inside the chamber. I was speaking with lawmakers, people out in the hall, and I'll have it here momentarily. Hang with me. So I knew Garland was out there, and I knew they talked to Garland. Okay. Now, some of these people you might have to go look up, you might have to go look up Chris Riley, who the background of Chris Riley, who is Speaker of the House, Speaker John Burns. Chris Riley is John Burns, right? Chief of Staff. And Chris Riley has a background. So go look up Chris Riley and where he comes from, and we'll try to do that in the article. So I said to Garland, this is a stunt. Now, this was the amendment. I said, this is a stunt. The House will strip the language. This is Saturday morning. Saturday morning at 11:48. This is a stunt. The House will strip the language. And Dolezal will claim he tried to move the ball. The language is in there so everybody could say, Greg Dolezal tried. He tried to do the right thing. But they wouldn't let him. You got to remember, Dolezal knows this process is going to happen all along. They made this deal. Now listen, this is what I told Garland. They made this deal for his yes, knowing it won't survive the House. So I'm telling Garland, don't go with this. Now this is before his press release. Remember, everything I'm telling you is before this. Right? Don't go with this. They're going to strip it out in the House. All right? They're going to vote on it. Dolezal is going to vote yes. They're all going to vote yes. It's going to look good, but it won't survive the House. I told him that. He says to me, the House won't strip it. They have agreed to it. Now, if he's going to tell me the House won't strip it, they've agreed to it, how does he know they agreed to it? Who is talking to Garland? Who is telling Garland what to carry, what water to you to mislead you, in my humble opinion? I sent back bullshit. That's what I sent back. Bullshit. Victor and Chris Riley came over to the Senate to confer before they presented the amendment. I saw them. Who wrote this amendment? Who wrote this law? But he says, hey, Victor Anderson and Chris Riley came over to the Senate to confer before they presented the amendment. I saw them. They have said the House won't strip it out. So they went in from the House into the Senate. It's all a show. And they come back out, and Garland's now going to sell you. I said Governor Kemp will veto it as is. As is. And I'm not going to mention the name here. He said, no, we have word that Governor Kemp won't. All right? So I tried to tell him, this ain't going anywhere. But what'd he do? He was the one that came out and said, could you sell this to all them people that have been working their ass off? Hey, could you sell this to people? The ones out there, can you sell it to them? You know, the ones that pack the state election board, the ones that pack, you know, the offices down there at the Capitol that have worked. Can you sell it to them? These are the press releases he puts out. Historic. Trying to sell you. Well, he's not carrying anything for this place any longer. So I'll wrap up my voter GA with this. I told Garland Favorito that Jason Frazier would not be put on the election board in Fulton County. I told him that. I told him over and over. I said, Jason Frazier will not be put on there. There's no judge that's going to demand, okay, that a commissioner has to vote a certain way. Now, we'll get into that much deeper later. I think Jason Frazier should have been on that board appointed to it. But I tried to tell Garland that over and over. He argued with me. Okay, no problem. Now, let me look you in the eye for everybody out there that is bashing Mark Davis or bashing Tim Fleming, right? We had a candidate. His name was Kelvin King. We had a candidate we could work with. His name was Kelvin King. Now, Garland will always tell you, we're a 501c. We can't support anyone. Well, let me tell you, ask Garland. And I'll stick to this. You'll never convince me Ted Metz. You'll never convince me that Ted Metz did not tell Garland he was going to go down and qualify. Now, for those that are going to attack me about Ted Metz, this is not anti-Ted Metz. This is diluting our damn vote so thin that Tim Fleming's your nominee. Because we diluted our vote so thin. And we knew Ted couldn't win, and we knew Vernon couldn't win. Now, so when Ted Metz told Garland Favorito, no matter what he says, you'll never convince me in a million years that Garland didn't know he was going down to qualify. Did Garland say, please, Ted, don't go? Please, Ted, we have worked our asses off for years. I've worked my ass off for 20 years. People have worked their ass off for 6 years, day in and day out. Don't go, Ted. You're going to dilute the vote. Don't go. Did he? No, Ted went down and he qualified. Now, Vernon Jones did, question mark. Vernon likes to attack. Did someone put Vernon Jones in the race to dilute your vote? And if so, why did Garland participate? Why? Because I watched and I asked this question. I watched that forum that they had where Voter GA invited Ted Metz, Kelvin King, Vernon Jones, Gabriel Sterling, and Tim Fleming. Now, they knew Tim Fleming and Gabriel Sterling would not show up. And this was after Voter GA, Garland Favorito, we all watched Vernon Jones attack Kelvin King viciously on a debate stage, right? Remember that? They hold a little forum. I'm asking, why are you giving Vernon Jones a platform? Well, candidates need to hear from all the candidates. Well, why did you do that, Voter GA? Why? Why did you give that platform to Vernon Jones? So Vernon Jones, he is in the runoff. In the runoff. And Ted Metz gets on board with him, and they're going to team up and run the Secretary of State's office. Little question mark. Was that always the plan with Ted and Vernon? Was Garland aware of something? Question mark. Right? And then what happens? In the runoff, Vernon has that little round table, and Garland validates him again. So I'm going to tell you, I have so much stuff where it's no more. I think he's a nice man, a kind man. He's a gentle spirit. But if we're going forward, because remember, your next forward, it's done. Your next forward, because the House stripped it, just like I told Garland. They stripped it. The House did not hold up to it. And he came out and he sold it to you. He sold it to you. He sold it to you. Where's all the press releases now? Right? Your next move is 2027 because you're going in November and you're not getting any recounts. No, you're not. And you're voting with a QR code with a guy that sent out a press release calling it historic, what they attempted. Now, second, I'll move on. The Freedom Caucus of Georgia Freedom Caucus. Now, let me start with this. I like, and I want to make sure I have the names correct. I like Charlize Byrd. And before we go any further, I want to give a shout out to Charlize Byrd, Mitchell Horner, and Noel Kahayan, who voted no on the House version. So I want to give a shout out to them. I've always liked Charlize Byrd. I always have. I've always liked Charlize Byrd. I like Noel Kahayan. I think maybe they can regroup, start over, get a fresh start, clean their slate. We could fight legislation together. I'll be glad to help you. I used to fight legislation all the time with the Georgia Freedom Caucus. But you know what? Mallory Staples quit talking to me. That's okay. I mean, people don't have to talk to me. But I used to fight legislation back in the day. But self-preservation, right? Here's what she put out. Mallory Staples. So, in fact, Georgia Freedom Caucus, you need to ask for Mallory Staples' resignation immediately and clean the slate. Charlize Byrd, Noel, good people, clean this thing up. Let's fight legislation because our next battle is 2027. Let's get ready. Because, you know, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, that's insanity, expecting a different result. So this is what she puts out. For the first time in our movement's history, our movement, bullshit, not my movement, baby. No. I didn't mean that in a derogatory way. The Georgia Senate voted today to require hand-counted ballots in the state. Woohoo? What? Under the amended version of SB 3EX, the human-readable portion of every ballot will be hand-counted to verify that votes are counted as cast, not solely by machines. Now, I will not support any organization that is carrying the water for any candidate that will mislead you to give a candidate cover. I will not support any organization that will give a candidate cover and mislead you. Because when this is all going on, they know the House is going to strip it. They know this is not going to happen. But they got to cover, and I'm not attacking the ticket. I didn't do this. I had someone call me and say, I have 6 years of my life invested in this. And this is what I got? Yes. You got people running cover for Greg Dolezal because when we were in the legislative session, I told you all along. So he has to move to the center, and he has to start doing things different. Not exactly doing what he promised you during the primary. So he's got to have cover. Under the amendment version, the human readable portion of every ballot will be hand counted and verified that votes are counted as cast, not solely by machines. The bill also prevents election certification. See this? Election certification. Am I the only one? Am I the only one that digs this up? Am I the only one bringing to surface the death of election integrity people, that your belief out there in these people? I'm going to show you that in a minute. The bill also prevents election certification if there is discrepancies between the machine count and the hand count until the official tabulation is corrected. Oh, they know that's not going to happen. They know it's not. This is a major step forward, transparent, verifiable elections and ending reliant on machine tabulation. Now the bill is headed to the House. Call your state representatives, right? Then she puts out, win for election integrity. You got to win, baby. The first time in our movement, right? Now, she puts out an article from the Freedom Caucus. Hand count, exclamation point. Wow. Under the dome, State Freedom Caucus. I am pleased to say that today, Georgia Senate voted for the first time ever in history for our movement. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. They presented, and 8 Republicans passed it out of the ethics committee, right? That Max Burns put forward, that came out of the House, that said QR codes and a committee to choose the machinery for the next election system. Tell the daggone truth. This moves away from being solely reliant on hackable machines. Now, here's where they got me. Here's where it got me. I absolutely will not, Democrat. I'm a Republican. I am a Republican. I say it 3 times because, are you a Republican? I will not allow an organization to mislead people to run cover for something that happens in legislation with a lawmaker. I won't support it. This one really just smoked me to no end. I want to thank Senator Greg Dolezal. Well, obviously the Freedom Caucus and Mallory Staples, because Mallory's very, very fond of Greg Dolezal. I mean, it's like every post, it's go Greg, go. So she's very fond of Greg. She's very sold in. She's bought in, just apparently the way I see it, question mark, that she needs Greg to win. Okay? Period. He has nothing to gain politically. This is what she wrote to tell you. Nothing to gain politically from this. Yet he is championing the issue and leading the charge because it's the right policy move. I am so grateful that he is our candidate for lieutenant governor. If you stomach this paragraph, and if you get up and sell me on Mallory Staples and the Freedom Caucus any longer, absolutely not. You see, these organizations, you have the bad legislators over here. And then you have these groups posing as though they're helping us while they're moving it forward, where they're on our side. But it is self-gratification, and it is self-gratification, and you are shit out of luck. Because they're not pulling the cart for you. It's for themselves. Probably shouldn't have said that. Hope my granddaughter's not watching. Here's what she continues to put out. Call to action. The Senate has passed the bill. The House needs the Senate bill. Pass SB 3EX as passed by the Senate. Preserve the hand count requirement within the bill. Tell everyone you know the Senate has passed a bill to require it. Call to action, right? Now, when they do this, they know, right? She is the executive director of the Georgia Freedom Caucus. As a former teacher, small business owner, she brings invaluable convictions and real-world perspective, fighting for values of freedom, personally responsible, and faith in God. I just had to pause. Charlize Bird, I still support you. Noel Kahana, I still support you. I do think you have a passion for the right thing, and you should no longer allow your organization to be used to run cover or to mislead the people. I will help you fight legislation in 2027, but I think you should release Mallory Staples immediately from the Freedom Caucus. And this is not ugly. I'm not being mean. I mean, bottom line, I'm showing you, as one person used to say, I'm going to bring the receipts. Now, the next one. This has really gotten me in trouble. This is the trifecta. But I have said this before, okay? The GRA. The GRA. Now, look me in the eye. A lot of you out there wear a GRA badge. You're very, very good people. You are. You're great people. I wish, like anything, you would clean house, go back to your core values, and put some people in place that were not trying to save things and an organization for themselves. Not for you. I wish, like anything. You're good people. You get mad at me, you get mad at me. But why you would allow these people to continue to run this organization knowing that they're misleading you, in my humble opinion, because that's the way I see it. Here you go. So let's go with this. So the GRA, they come out, right? Now, they have to prove their existence. They're trying to hold on to power. There's a lot of rumor that Alex Johnson wants to run for GOP chair, the Georgia GOP chair, a lot of rumor. So they're working very, very hard right now. Alex is putting out a lot of Substacks calling about leadership. But as you well know, as the leader of the GRA, no matter how mad you get at me, it was GRA membership, the Frost. It was Alex Johnson that allowed the Frost to take over the membership. It was Alex Johnson, no matter what he tells you, that allowed the Frost to start a GRA PAC with their own name that they're now dealing with. And if Alex Johnson's past and proof of what his leadership looks like, I sure hope that he's not planning to sell you that he could have leadership with the Georgia GOP, period. All right. So legislature poised to postpone QR code removal, adds hand count requirement in compromise bill. Now, Nathaniel Darnell, I won't spend a lot of time. These people are at self-preservation. You understand? They're trying to control power. They're trying to keep power. No, not the right thing. Because every one of these, voter GA, tell me what we accomplished. You're going to tell me we accomplished SB 189? Well, SB 189 went right up the crapper the other day, right? Yesterday, right? Is that what we accomplished? Are you going to show me how many lawsuits we won? Thousands and thousands of dollars, expert witnesses, testimony? Yeah, but we were right. Okay. Yeah, but those judges are in the pocket. Okay, but how many have we won? Go give me the accomplishments. I have been attacked relentlessly over the scorecard, all right? Lawmakers do not care their scorecard says 50. It doesn't matter to them. It doesn't care if their scorecard says 45%, 60%. They do not care. They have everything set up to get reelected. You put out the scorecards and you say, look at this one and this one. They get reelected. And guess what? You continue to have the fight. These are the organizations. We're going to continue to fight. You see, if we solve something, there's no need for them. They can't let you solve it, right? How can you solve it? Why, what need would you have? These are all self-preservations, period. Power. Not for you, folks. This is Nathaniel Darnell and Greg Dolezal. Now, I'm going to hear that I've gone after the ticket. I didn't do jack. These people are doing it. They're doing it to you, not me. Now they have this lawsuit. 10 GOP delegates file lawsuit to protect integrity of Republican Party. Okay. This is all because you see who they got on there? Josh McCoon and the GOP chair and Brad Raffensperger. So Alex Johnson's running this lawsuit, ginning it up, getting you excited over it. And he's got the Boogeyman A, Josh McCoon, and I know I'm not friends with Josh McCoon. He's got Boogeyman A. He's got Boogeyman B, Brad Raffensperger, right? Do you ever see Alex write the article where Josh should have resigned, or the article saying that the convention should have a revote, or the convention that was the very rigged stage political convention should have been null and void? We should have had a new election or something. You ever see that? Did you see Alex Johnson come to the mic? Maybe he couldn't get to one, right? They were blocked. Did you see Alex Johnson come to the mic and say, Mr. Chairman, I actually think this convention's out of order. As the head of the Republican Assembly, I have chaired multiple conventions in the past. I feel strongly that the delegates are not being represented. Now, the delegates over here for Alex Johnson, why, 10 delegates. We feel we were done wrong because Brad Raffensperger was allowed to be on the ballot. And Josh McCoon allowed it. Well, that's a guy who wants to try to take the job for himself. Self-gratification, self-interest, not for you. He knows what's going to happen here. He knows that. Alex knows what's going to go on here, right? But he's got you whooped into a frenzy. He didn't whoop that frenzy up, right? He didn't go and say, the delegates. Now he's interested in the delegates and what we did. He didn't say the delegates were misled that day. He didn't say the convention was out of order. The convention should have been a spoiled vote. No, he didn't. He didn't run to the microphone that day and say, this is out of order because I have hundreds of my members standing behind me. No, he had Katie Frost. He had Brant Frost. He had, what's the guy up there that was running the convention? We'll leave that out. I can't remember him right now. He had GRA members across the front. He didn't go and say, I have hundreds of GRA members standing behind me that you are violating their right as a delegate today. No, he didn't have interest that day. Then he even went on and wrote that glowing article about the convention. Like he wasn't there. But now he's got this lawsuit. And he's talked people into getting on board. And I'm disappointed in several of the names that got on board. I really am. Because in my humble opinion, call me whatever the hell you want to call me today. I feel you're being used so he can bolster himself and put himself in a position like he is some great leader to take us to the next level, when the organization that he failed as a leader and the guy that is we will go into Nathaniel Darnell on a different day, they should both be gone. Get rid of them, clean your organization up, get back to your core values. So they tried to avoid a lawsuit. They got sued anyway. The lawsuit the GOP was warned about, right? Oh, no, not about spoiling an election. No, not about that. The delegates voted. Leadership vetoed them. This is all a stunt by Alex Johnson to manipulate you, once again, like everything else. And here they are, Alex Johnson and Nathaniel Darnell. So you've got three groups of great people, amazing people that have worked their ass off to beat Ossoff. And what do you got? You got Group A voter GA, Garland Favorito carrying the water for lawmakers, telling you we moved the ball. People are tired of the move the ball. He needs to resign. Mallory Staples, Freedom Caucus. Look at what a great thing Greg did. Greg knew when he got there that this piece of legislation did not have that amendment, and it was QR codes. And it put him in a box on voting yes, which he eventually voted yes. And he voted yes for the House substitute that stripped out almost completely the entire amendment. He voted yes. But Mallory, thank you, Greg. Mallory Staples should resign immediately. And Alex Johnson and Nathaniel Darnell should resign immediately. Three organizations. I may have ended my career today, but if you want to get off to the right foot in 2027, hit the reset, realize we have not moved the ball. Go look at your accomplishments. Don't start getting on the phone and signal chats and all that bullshit. Go sit down by yourself and say, okay, I got to do a gut check. Where are we at? The amendments erased. I'm going to show you. And there won't be recounts. Now, this guy here, I have no use for. This is Max Burns. Max Burns stood up and presented the bill, right? No use for Max Burns. But here's something else he did, right? He got up and talked about his license plate, the 776 Georgia license plate. You know, these guys could get up here and talk about a license plate, right? And they could get up there and debate lemon pepper as the flavor for our wings. The state wing flavor, lemon pepper, got more debate, more time, more media, and passed. Same thing with a license plate he holds up. But 90% of Republican voters said they want election integrity. Not 90% of Republican voters said, hey, I like lemon pepper. Not 90% of Republican voters said, hey, I want that license plate. 90% of Republican voters on May 19th said, I want election integrity as a top priority. 90%. Now, let me show you what the bill strips out, because we have the hero. So we're going to go into what the bill strips out. Then I'm going to play some clips for you. All right. Elected to an office in such qualified contest, and the number of votes received by any other candidate or candidates not declared, blah, blah, blah. If such difference, now listen to this, this is in the bill. If such difference is not more than 0.5%, no later than 2 business days following the date of certification. The date of certification of the election results required by subsection, the Secretary of State shall direct that manual recounts of all ballots such qualified in all counties. certification. You see, you have runoffs, and that's what they're fighting. So before certification, as the Freedom Caucus led you to believe, and the cheering that this amendment, Greg Dolezal amendment, right? The county certifies. If the discrepancy is after the county certification. Now, the Secretary of State comes 15 days later. So if you cannot verify or an election is within that 0.5%, 2 days after county certification, then the Secretary of State's to mandate a hand count. Now, the hand count has to be done well in advance of early voting for a runoff. Oh, yes. They just went in and threw this mess against the wall. They threw it against the wall. Let's see what sticks. We're going home. It's noon. It's noon. We've been here long enough. So, first of all, remember, the recount is after certification. So don't fall for that, okay? Remember Garland Favorito? I told him the House would strip this. Now, here's the second section I want to show you that the House stripped. Or the recount, it's gone. Now, in the election equipment and specifications, they call this the Tim Fleming over in the House amendment. This is an amendment that came back in the House, right? And Max Burns kindly says this is a political stunt. Now, they don't call Greg Dolezal a political stunt, but they called this. There is created the Election Equipment Specification and Standards Committee, all right? Specification standards requirement for new uniform system of election equipment based upon hand-marked paper ballots produced utilizing ballot on-demand printing. Such committee shall be comprised of the following. So when it went over from the Senate, it didn't say paper ballots. So it went over to the Senate. We've got all the talk where Greg Dolezal said paper ballots. But keep in mind, even the amendment that was passed in the Senate went to the House that Victor Anderson put into committee, did not say paper ballots. Tim Fleming put that in there, right? So how about a recount? What's the chance of the recount? So we just looked this up. Finding an exact, exhausting total of every election, municipal, county, and election that fell under 5% is mathematically impossible. So I asked it to try to do research, and I've done a lot of research here. However, we can look exactly at modern federal, statewide, and congressional elections where we have definite data. All right? The 0.5% margin is highly significant in Georgia under state law. HB 316 passed in 2019. 0.5% is the exact legal threshold. They didn't give you anything, right? Certification was the big deal. That was the big deal. Hand counting before certification. This is already law. It's already law. It was passed in HB 316 in 2019. That 5% is exact legal threshold that allows a trailing candidate to request a taxpayer-funded recount. In 2026, the state legislature updated the mandate. This was already done. They have you leading you to believe. Now, I knew that the hand recount before certification was getting stripped. I tried to tell Garland Favorito that. Here is the highest. Now, I just want to show you a couple so you can see the likelihood of this happening, right? The 2020 U.S. presidential election. Well, guess what? It's not on the list. It's not on the list. The governor and the lieutenant governor are on the list, right? Candidate was Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Let me get this moved over here. Candidate was Joe Biden and Donald Trump. The margin, 0.23, 11,779 votes. Oh, by the way, this was an election that we put in the books as stolen. The 2020 election, presidential election, was stolen. The numbers out of nearly 5 million votes cast. The result, because the margin was under 0.5%, the Trump campaign legally entitled to a recount. Okay. What's the other one? Here's one. Remember this one? Now, this one here, I remember like it was yesterday. This is before we drew, talking about redistricting, the old Georgia 7th Congressional District, right? This is when This is when Rob Woodall, remember him? Rob Woodall was the congressman in the 7th District. He ran against Carolyn Bardo. Carolyn Bardo, the Democrat, came within 0.15. Vote difference of 433 votes. But this would not get a recount. Wouldn't get a recount. Wouldn't do it on the law that was passed. The amended version from the House. Greg Dolezal voted on. I keep saying that for a reason. I'll show you in a minute. High tight local voting gets. While we don't have a master database, to give you an idea, a few votes taking place in Georgia, look at Terrell County during the 2024 presidential election. All right, here's the interesting one in history that I find most interesting. It's got Georgia history. In 1966, Georgia gubernatorial election. Now, we have runoffs. This happens to be the election where the state legislature put in place runoffs. This is where runoffs happened in the state of Georgia. In 1966, Georgia gubernatorial election, candidate Howard Bo Calloway, Republican versus Lester Maddox. Lester Maddox, the Democrat. The margin was 0.31. The vote difference was 3,039 votes. The number Calloway received was 46.53%, right? And Maddox received 46.22%. Nobody got over the 50% threshold. At this time, we did not have a runoff in Georgia. Over 7% of the vote went and siphoned off to a write-in candidate called Ellis Arnold. So he got 7% as a write-in. The result, this was one of the most chaotic elections in Georgia history. Because of the write-in votes, neither candidate achieved 50%. Under the Georgia state constitution at that time, the election was thrown into the state legislature. See, at that time, the election, if cannot be determined the winner, that they say, it goes to the legislature. The heavily Democratic General Assembly ignored Calloway's slim popular vote lead and voted to install Lester Maddox as governor. This razor-thin election directly led to the implementation of Georgia's modern runoff system to ensure future candidates win clear majority. Now, what I find interesting about this, they installed Lester Maddox in the controversial vote, much like Georgia gave Joe Biden a win in 2020. Just say. That being said, you will not experience a runoff. You won't do it. You won't experience a runoff. And it's in law. I'm going to show you all that in a minute. It's the law. Now, let me go in and play you a couple videos before I go into some reaction. Because you might say, well, BKP, I think you might be overreacting, right? I think you might be overreacting. maybe you're not being very Republican friendly. No, I am a Republican. It's the 8 Republicans on the Senate Ethics Committee that were not being very Republican friendly to you and I that passed this out of the committee with QR codes. It was the people that carried the water to you that wasn't very Republican, where I tried to tell them, I tried to tell people all day Saturday. I called people and said, no, don't know. This won't work. This won't work. This is what's about to happen. They know it, right? This is going to happen. Well, it got stripped out. So, first of all, I'm going to play this video to prove to you that these guys didn't even get this is the revised version. So what I mean by that, this is the version that came back from the House. This is the version that came back from the House. The Senate members were not even aware. I called Senate members and said, you realize the recounts come after certification. And they said, what? Are you sure? Yeah, I had that happen. Okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, let's attack BKP. There you go. Hang tight here, Baba Louie. Give me a minute.
All right. So the elections bill is being printed and distributed to everybody's desk. Everybody got one? Okay. Y'all ready to take it up now? Okay. Let's go.
It got printed. As soon as the House passed it, there was a motion made. And the motion was made to move the bill directly to the Senate, for the House clerk to move it to the Senate. It went over there, they printed it off, laid it on their desk. Most of these people, I can show you right here, most of these people never read the House revised version. Never read. All right. And I will tell you this, the organizations I talked about earlier, they're very embarrassed today. That's the nicest word I can come up with, is they're embarrassed. But hold on, I got another one for you here. All right. Hold on, I'm going to give you another one here. I'm going to show you a couple more. Now, this is over at the House. I'm going to prove to you, this is the House. This is a lawyer. I forget his name. I didn't pull it up. But this gentleman is an attorney with the House, the Georgia House of Representatives, and he presents a portion of the bill. Pay attention.
And how we do that. And so I appreciate the concerns everyone has about, hand counting of ballots. But it's a great irony to me that those, to Chairman Anderson's point, those who are urging a vote against this bill are going to cause the very thing that they decry and disdain, which is hand counting. If you don't pass this bill, that's what we're going to be doing based on the current statute. If you pass this bill, yes, there will be hand counts, but we're trying to do the hand counts in situations where it makes sense to do so. The initial bill that came to us basically was, what was that movie? Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. You know, every election, every time, every place, you had to have hand counts of the 2 top races. We've tried to limit that in this bill so that it's only if the races are within a certain margin, and then only certain races would be counted. We tried to follow language of an existing statute governing tabulation recounts to provide for the hand recounts. And to me, the big problem with the bills that came to us is it required that hand counting happen prior to local certification, which is just, I think, 6 days after the election. Well, now we're following the existing statute and providing for the hand counts after certification so communities have more time. That was the main thing I heard from our election officials, is hand counts are time consuming. You got to organize, you got to get ready, and then the process itself takes time. And the bill as amended allows them that time and also provides them funding to get it done. So I believe that what we have here is a reasonable compromise that is very workable, and Gavrio does support it as it is. So I would urge everyone to please vote in support of this measure, and I'll yield the well.
Secondly,
Gavio supports it. Remember, right, that in, let me get it back up here. I know I can find it. Hold on a second. I just brought it to you. This is why you watch the show. No matter how angry you get at me, this is why you watch the show. Maybe I don't have it right now. But remember what I told you, right? I told you that after certification, right? I told you that. I put it right there. I told you it was law in 2019. It was law. 0.5%. That's already the law. They made fools of some people, total fools. The Senate was never fooled. They knew that was the law. The Senate knew it was going to get stripped out, right? All they did was move the QR code. That's it, right? And create this committee that has no authority whatsoever. You can create committees at any time. And then they put this hand count provision in there that's already in the law. Just say it. You can't make this up. So let's see, where am I at here? So I wanted to go and get some reaction. And I wanted to go get some reaction from people. And some was very ugly. People are angry. So I went to get former vice chair of the Georgia State Election Board, Dr. Janice Johnston. I think I said that correctly. Dr. Janice Johnston. And you see what this says? Georgia election integrity in chains. According to the governor and legislators, this is not a ballot. This is a false ballot. This false ballot is not legal for federal law. HAVA, you continue to hear HAVA. This false ballot is not safe, secure, or trusted. Most states do not vote this way. Free countries do not vote this way. Georgia is not free. Dems and Republican lawmakers have failed. Okay? Now, this is not BKP. Here's another one. I'm staying with Dr. Janice Johnston. QR codes for voting. If QR codes are so great, I make a motion that the Georgia General Assembly vote using QR codes and present the results just like they force on Georgia citizens. Okay? And here is, I think, the same one, but I got the bottom where she actually puts, this is the same one. Earlier, I cropped out accidentally the QR code on the bottom where she shows you the QR code. So now, before we go much further, the piece of legislation for the hand-marked paper ballots, I'm going to play you the arrogance of Max Burns when he explains the bill. All right? Now, first of all, Max Burns leaves out. He doesn't say it until his second comment later on in his presentation to the Senate. And he says it very brief, where if you're not paying attention, you didn't catch it. But Max Burns, when he describes the bill, The House revised version that came over yesterday, the one that's now going to the governor's desk, it's going to the governor's desk. He leaves out certification on the explanation. Let's see if I have that. And then I'm going to play how he actually tells you, look, we threw in, this is why I'm tired of these people. I've had it. We basically threw in for a political stunt. That was the Dolezal. Now we're throwing this one in for another candidate. So let me pull this up. Hold on just a second, folks. And then I'm going to give you something before we leave. Now, right here. All right, this is Max Burns. Really quick, pay attention to this.
Section 2 in lines in section 2 in lines 70 through 77. It determines that notwithstanding provisions of this subsection to the contrary, any qualified contest that appears first or second on the ballot with a difference between the number of votes of the candidate declared or elected office, the contest must be more than 1/2%. So anything falling less than 1/2%, there would be triggered an automatic hand count to verify the election. That's a key provision that the House recommended and that we can accept. It ensures that every race at the top of the ticket, governor, lieutenant governor, if they are close, we will do a physical hand count to resolve any differences. And it says in line 77, the Secretary of State shall direct that a manual recount of ballots be cast. If the recount does not confirm the tabulation by the machine, then we reference the code section 21-2-493 to resolve that. Finally, the risk limit.
Would you like?
You never heard him say before certification. Never heard that before certification. Then he just read that as though the House recommended it and they accept it. It's the law, people. It's already the law. It was put out in 2019. It's the law. 0.5% triggers that recount. He never says before certification or after certification, never says the word certification. And then he says, this is something the House recommended and we accept. No, it's the law. I mean, this thing is so shady. And you wonder why we're going to have a problem come November? Now, I don't think I'm quite ready for this, so let me see if I have another one here. Now, listen to John Burns. Not John Burns, I apologize. Listen to Max Burns, District 23, that carried the bill that the House wrote. Listen to him explain the paper ballots.
Way tough challenges are. I am delighted that the senator from the 14th can support the pink version of Senate Bill 3EX. Let's quickly walk through the journey and let's quickly walk through the changes just for clarification. We proposed Senate Bill 3EX and it went to committee on Thursday. We had robust debate. We had opportunity to make adjustments to that. The committee chose not to. It came to the floor on Saturday morning and it was voted out 33-19. It went to the House. We were in House Committee yesterday for a hearing, and then again this morning for a vote as amended. So what you see in front of you is the amended version of 3EX that came out of the committee this morning, actually. It went to the floor this morning, and it was adopted by the House, 94 to 79. So the most important thing is, what does the bill do? What does it do? It makes some modest changes to an underlying bill that was sound. On line 22, it changed a word to recommend. It also added an amendment offered by a House member who is seeking additional opportunities, but it inserted after the word equipment, as you'll see on line, gotta find the right line, 23, thank you. Line 23, the word, let me read it for you. A new uniform system of elections equipment based upon hand-marked paper ballots produced utilizing ballot-on-demand printing. That is a key change.
Did you hear what he said? Did you hear what he said? The paper ballot clause that was put in there from the House, he said, the Tim Fleming amendment that is called, he said, a House member seeking additional opportunities. Like, we threw this political stunt in here. He's got to go sell this. Greg Dolezal he had to go sell his part. Tim Fleming's got to sell his part. Seriously? That's the way they're talking to us, folks. That's the way they're talking to us. The Tim Fleming amendment, a House member seeking additional opportunities, right? Now, let's go with some politics now. Now, this is Josh McLaren. And Josh McLaren is running for lieutenant governor of Georgia against Greg Dolezal. Now, Greg Dolezal spent his entire time in the Senate this past year, or legislative session, the one before the special session here, in the main legislative 2026 legislative session, going to the well and giving speeches. He gave more speeches about election integrity, paper ballots, how we need to vote, QR codes. He gave speech after speech. He proposed SB 568, knowing he didn't have the votes. I called it out then. I said, this doesn't have the votes. It's going nowhere. But people were saying, oh, Greg is trying. He is trying. He needs to be our nominee. Well, Greg ran in a lane that he is the nominee for lieutenant governor for Republican. He goes down there. He votes for the House revised section, which basically, you need to understand something here. I say it nicely. That the House version that came over, that the Senate voted on, is literally, basically, nothing new from the one they originally started with. They just pushed the law into that and called it the Dolezal Amendment. And Greg Dolezal voted for QR codes on the House version that didn't move the ball. Now, this is Josh McLaren. Now, Josh is running for lieutenant governor. And what you do is you make sure, you absolutely make sure that you do not overshadow in the race. You don't overshadow the U.S. Senate and the governor. That race needs to be silent. Now, Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones gave Josh McLaren and Greg Dolezal an opportunity, both of them, to preside over the Senate. He actually called it a test drive. I forget what he said here, but it said, you want to know, you won't know until November who is the Georgia's next lieutenant governor, but on Tuesday, Jones gave both contenders a chance to take the office out for a test drive. So Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones gave both of these guys an opportunity to go to the well and, preside over the Senate. Greg turned it down. In fact, Greg's been very quiet, very quiet. Can't hear from Greg. We don't hear from Greg. But he did. Now, I'm going to play his full speech. Everything I'm doing here is very worthy. You can watch this in certain segments, but everything I'm doing today is very worthy of taking the time and listening to these people, because this is the guy that could be the next lieutenant governor of Georgia, a Democrat. This guy could be the next lieutenant governor. Pay attention to what he says when he goes to speak about this bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, yes, yes. Any way you slice it, yes. Is it pink? Yes. Is it yellow? Yes. Unfortunately, we are here because we have failed to do our jobs as the state Senate and the state House over and over again. Now, of course, Democrats are not in control, but I say we, charitably. And now the House has tried to clean up a little bit of the mess that this chamber left them with by adding manual hand recounts prior to certification. I want to tell the public the story quickly of how this happened. Senate Bill 3EX came out of committee a few days ago and was not perfect by any stretch. There was a failure to add minority party representation. It added risk limiting audits that we arguably didn't need. It beat up on the Secretary of State for no reason, because that's become a pastime of this chamber. And yet, I was thinking about voting yes, and the reason is that Georgia and the United States of America writ large desperately needs adults right now. The QR code deadline of July 1st, if this chamber did not fix this issue, was threatening to send us to court. If we don't fix this by July 1st, we'll have a problem. Congressional District 13 has a special election that's coming up soon. Obviously, we have November elections. I will be participating in those. But we have tons of races that would be thrown into question: the timing, the electorate, the turnout, total chaos and uncertainty if this were to go to litigation. So that's why many election experts, the real ones, and lots of interested parties have just begged the House and the Senate to do something. Just pass a fix, kick out the QR code deadline. We'll talk about hand-marked paper ballots later, but right now we just need to handle the impending legal crisis that is on our hands. And folks, whether you vote for the yellow version, which my caucus has proposed, which I think is really good policy, all things considered, or whether you vote for the pink version, which reverts back to the House version as passed, I urge a yes vote. Because it's time to do what we came here to do and not get chopped up by partisan infighting of any kind. Here's what happened. Friday of last week, the senator from the 27th was whipping votes within the Republican caucus against this bill. The senator from the 27th was trying to get the majority party not to fix this problem, because he wants it to go to court. He wants there to be uncertainty. He wants people not to trust the results of validly held elections. And there were election deniers in the hallway on Saturday who were urging a no vote on this bill. Sometimes you know where you stand by who's against something. And in that case, you had somebody who has profited from election denier lies politically and has now gotten nominated on the basis of them, plus election deniers in the hallway who are all saying the same thing: don't fix the problem. So that bill got out of here a little clunky on Saturday. The House, obviously thrilled with the Senate's progress, did what they could to limit the amount of election denier damage to the bill. But dear God, we have to fix this problem. And today I genuinely don't care if you are a Democrat or if you are a Republican. This is so much bigger than partisanship. And that's not always true. I think sometimes our party affiliations are useful for signaling which values are at stake in a policy debate or discussion, but not today. Today, the people of Georgia need us to create a landscape for Georgia election law that is predictable and consistent and fair. And let me tell you something really funny about this bill. The pink version on line 70, from line 70 to line 75, do you know what it says? The House version says that no election is allowed to have a result where the first place finisher gets more than 0.5% more than the second place finisher. It bans election results that aren't within 0.5%. That's literally what it says. But this is not Legislative Council's fault, because they were put in an impossible position, which was to fix our problem and to be the adult on about a 5-minute time frame. Legislative Council worked their butt off on this, did the very best they could. The whole building, we're all here. The troopers in the hallway, the staff, everybody's here over Father's Day weekend, Juneteenth weekend, to try to clean up our mistakes because we can't get it together to do the obvious thing to make sure that Georgia law stays consistent when we need it to the most. But I'm voting yes for a version that has a clerical error in it that bans election results, basically every election result. And the reason I'm voting for it is because I have confidence that the Supreme Court would strike down that provision as absurd, and it would not interfere with the normal operation of the bill. But folks, that's the position we're left in, is that to be the adult in the room on this vote, you have to look past Circus A, Circus B, and do the right thing for Georgia. And I'll defend this vote till the day I die. We have to stop election denial in the state of Georgia. We have to stop Trump's lies. And the way to do that today is to vote for the operation of good government. I urge a yes vote. Thank you very much, colleagues.
Now, you think he was talking election denial and Trump's lies, as he called it, Josh McLaren. You think that that made all Republicans mad, but it didn't. Look at him up there presiding over the Senate. Greg Dolezal didn't do that. He didn't go up there and preside over the Senate. Josh did, right? That could be your next lieutenant governor. That's why I made you listen to all of it, or hopefully you did, because that could be your next lieutenant governor of Georgia right there, Josh McLaren. And he sounded like the adult in the room. I know you're angry about some things he said, but he said this, that Greg, that was who he was referring to, Greg Dolezal, was out whipping votes. Whipping votes. All right? Now, here's the interesting thing is I know exactly what did happen, right? I know what did happen, and I find this interesting. Listen to Larry Walker, the Senate pro temp, come and defend Greg. But actually, this is truthful. I'll break it down for you.
Would you like to speak?
Good morning. I appreciate the senator from the 14th agreeing to support this bill. We have worked tirelessly on this. Chairman, the senator from the 23rd has been a leader on this issue for the Senate. We worked closely with our partners in the House, but the senator from the 27th has been a champion for securing elections and has been a honest broker in this process. His concern is that we get this right for all Georgians, and he has worked closely with our caucus. He's very knowledgeable on the issues, and we've had some robust debates in our caucus. We've met for hours and hours since we came back up for this special session. He's been a good party to that process all the way, and to characterize him as trying to whip votes against this bill is just patently false. So I want to correct the record for that. He's been a great colleague in this process. This has been difficult. We were here past 9 o'clock last night, meeting with House leadership, and all the people involved in this want to get it right for the people of Georgia. I think the measure in front of you does that. I'm proud of it, and I hope we will have unanimous support for this good piece of legislation. Thank you.
Now, he goes up and he defends Greg, and he says what? He says, Greg was not out there whipping no votes. It didn't happen. It didn't happen, right? I do know this. What exactly transpired? Because I will never come on here and look at you and say, this is exactly what transpired if I can't look you in the eye, because I look you in the eye, all right? But what transpired? There was a lot of panic. There was panic because Greg Dolezal and others were trying to figure out, like Mallory Staples, hey, what can I give to Garland Favorito? They were talking to Garland. He was talking to Garland Favorito. I have fact. Hey, Greg is out in the hall talking to Garland Favorito right now. Mallory Staples, Freedom Caucus. What can you guys sell? Is paraphrasing, or you know what? This is so he wasn't, quote, whipping no votes, but they were all in a panic of how do we get this out, make it look like Greg fought it all the way and Greg tried hard, right? How do we do that? And that amendment that meant nothing, don't forget, he voted for the House version. Now, I'm not here to attack the guy. I'm here to say right now, he needs to back up, shut up, stay out of the way. I think, I don't know if he will, but I think if Rick Jackson and Mike Collins find distance, they need to bring him in. Rick Jackson needs to bring him in. Well, I'll say it in a minute. All right. So now, as we try to close up shop here, let's see what else I have here. Now, Democrats just absolutely love the weekend. We have the one here. I'm going to show you a couple more videos. So here is Democracy Docket. Georgia State Senator Greg Dolezal, Republican nominee for lieutenant governor, said he deliberately submitted fake mail-in ballot applications to argue Georgia's election system enables fraud. Dolezal has centered his campaign on distrust of elections and pushed for stricter voting rules. Now, he will face Senator Josh McLaren. We showed you that. Democrat for the state's second most powerful position in November, lieutenant governor. There are people now filing a complaint with the Georgia State Election Board for what he did, and they are going to push and ask why it's not being investigated. So they're trying to open an investigation with the State Election Board now. What that will transpire and develop into, we'll let you know. Now, here's another one. I didn't do any of these. None of them have my name on it. Now, this is Rua Roman, right? Paid for by Rua Roman personally. Keep Georgia bigot free. She put a pair of bunny ears on Greg. Just saying. That's out there. I've said this all along. We just started. Rick Jackson is taking time off. That's what we hear, relaxing. I don't blame him. Keisha Lance Bottoms is not really out there in the fight. I think it'll gear up 4th of July. They'll be out there, fireworks, handshaking. And I think after 4th of July and the 250th anniversary celebration of our country, that's when the gloves come off, I think, all right? Not that they're not already off, but in the straightest way. They're already, we haven't even gotten past 4th of July. They've already know, Democrats, to make him a centerpiece. So every single thing here I told you. Now, I'm going to play another video for you. This has to do with this. That's why I'm doing this in great detail, showing you everything, because you got to have a game plan when this is done. But I'm going to give you another one here. And this is the last video I'm going to play of the day.
Secondly, my colleague from the 27th has been quite quiet during this special session. There is video of him being on record saying, machines are more reliable than my hand when it comes to marking something. I would use the logic in my head to say that should also apply to hand recounts. If you're saying that about machines and marking ballots, that same logic should apply when we're recounting by hand, and the fact that humans are going to make errors. And now we're being told to vote for a bill that is going to allow that to be the record. And then further concern that I have.
Okay, so Greg has been very quiet. You see all these Democrats, Josh McLaren, Burt Jones gave Greg a chance. What'd he say? Boy, Greg's been awful quiet, right? Boy, Greg's been awful quiet. Now, they know this, and every time and everything Greg has done all through his primary campaign, they've been waiting. And I'm going to play what they have put out there. I'm going to play this right now. Pay attention to it. This is out there. Democrats did this, not me. All right? Because here, I got to hold that. I keep wanting to jump ahead, but I got to hold it.
Paper ballot.
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation.
Everything I do in my life tells me that machines are more reliable than my hand when it comes to marking something. And I do not believe that we need to go backwards as technology goes forwards. Paper ballots are the unfunded mandate. The overarching mandate for election officials is to ensure that we accurately count our citizens' votes for the candidates of their choice. It is a simple goal made much harder by paper-only voting. We have not had a documented case of voter fraud in our machines for the last 17 years. My question is about what is the better system? And when I look at everything that I do in my life, whether it's when I scan my passport to come into the country, whether it's when I get on an airplane, whether it's when I submit my tax returns, whether it's how I sign contracts, whether it's how I get paid and pay other people, to a point, I use an electronic system because it is more accurate. If you've seen my handwriting, you can verify that anything that I do on a computer is more accurate than anything that I can do handwritten. If we were on paper ballots and I wanted to tamper with a machine, I would need to tamper with the scanner, one machine. And I can promise you it's a lot easier to get in and get out and tamper with one machine than it is to get in and get out and tamper with 15 or 20 or 25 machines. I was a no on this bill, but after looking at the numbers, after realizing that the alternative would be a significant unfunded mandate, I am now a yes on this bill. Everyone should be voting on a hand-marked paper ballot.
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation.
Everything I do.
Georgia Senate Democrats are pushing that out. That's right. lieutenant governor's race needs to be silent. Now, I did not support another candidate, and I want to be clear, and I did not campaign for another candidate. I didn't do that. But you know what? Here's what I think could happen. I told you all along, I wanted a lieutenant governor's race that a candidate. I wanted the governor's office, and I still want the governor's office. I want the governor's office, period. I didn't want anything to try to take that down. Now, Mike Collins and Rick Jackson have already joined their allies. I don't know if Rick Jackson's going to work with the ballot. I mean, the ticket. I don't know if he will. He doesn't really need to. He's got money to run. He can run on his issues. He's going to try to run and not get tangled up. He does not want tangled up in anything that Tim Fleming has said and done. That's not an attack. I'm just saying, every candidate out there. Greg Dolezal has said and done, or any candidate, he will not, my prediction is, get himself tangled in any way. So Greg is out there. This is Shelley Winters. Now, the reason I tell you this, okay? The reason I tell you this is because the other day I am so angry at Republicans referring to him as a conservative talk show host. This is conservative. I'm a conservative. I'm really a Republican. I'm really a conservative. I really have a passion to do the right thing for you and I, my children and my grandchildren, for the love of this country. And there has to come a time when doing the right thing is the right thing to do. I mean, damn it. I don't know how that sounded, but we'll go with it. Now, this guy here, Rick Jackson interviewed with him. It's not an attack, blah, 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 right? He's been called conservative. I've told you how long? Years. I told you he's not MAGA. Told you that. But no, Republicans invite him to their Republican Party, to give speeches, to be keynote speakers at events, to lead forums. Republicans, Josh McCoon, every one of them have run to be on his show, right? But he endorsed Jon Ossoff. He endorsed, and he said he will work to get Jon Ossoff elected. Now, let me show you something else he said recently. Are you ready? Now, it's not that I'm saying he's that influential. I just know the signal, like the dog whistle. I know what signal he's sending out to certain areas. Here it is. Shelley Winters. This is on June 22nd, 2 days ago. I really do think the biggest fight is not at the top of the ticket in Georgia elections. See, I didn't say this because I'm going to get my ass handed to me from all of them out there. Oh my God, did you? Oh, we know he doesn't like Greg. No, I didn't do it. I didn't tell this guy to write this. I didn't tell Democrats to post that video. I didn't tell what's her name to put rabbit ears on him. I didn't tell the AJC to write an article with rabbit ears. I didn't. Not a thing. I didn't tell the man to go to the well one time and give one of those speeches that I knew would eventually bite him in the ass. I didn't do it. The biggest, the fight is not at the top of the ticket. I think the biggest fight is Lieutenant Governor Dolezal versus McLaren. It's going to be a fight. Dolezal's a fighter and McLaren's a fighter as well. The ads are going to be brutal and nasty. You see, just the fact that he puts this out says everything that McLaren loves it. All Democrats love it. John Ossoff absolutely loved this weekend. Keisha Lance Bottoms loves it. The fact that he's putting this out and he's elevating it to the top race validates what I told you. This will be the race that they will say, let's highlight this. Let's enhance it. Let's enhance, right? Let's throw gas on it, fuel on it, whatever. Let's make it combustible. That's what's happening right here. He's asking for you to pay attention to Josh McLaren. Yes, because you know what? Those Ossoff voters that he thinks he's moved Republicans. He thinks he's moved Republicans in Sandy Springs, Republicans in Buckhead, Republicans in Brookhaven. He thinks he's moving that area over to John Ossoff while he's also telling you that those squishy Republicans will vote for Josh McLaren because they don't want Greg Dolezal and his Sharia law. They don't want Greg Dolezal and his bunny ears, his election denial. Not me, not me. 2020 was stolen. They don't want it. This guy is bringing it to the forefront. This is why I hate to break it to you. You got to listen. Now, this is interesting. The special session is over, but lawmakers could come back soon. All right? Lawmakers could come back soon. So let me say this to you. In November, they might come back under the guise of redistricting. But you see, I don't know that this will happen, but this is just out here. I want to put it out there, let you think about it. Got it? Rick Jackson doesn't need Greg Dolezal to be lieutenant governor. You got it? He just needs to be governor. He just needs to hold the power of the governor's office. And then what Rick Jackson needs is Rick Jackson needs the Senate to have Republican majority. And he needs the House to have Republican majority over there with John Burns. And then he needs John Burns to be in charge of basically all of it for him, right? Got it? Pay attention to me. He doesn't need Greg Dolezal. You see, Josh McLaren, and I'm not validating or asking you to support him. Please get off my keister, meester. But Josh McLaren is very smart, crafty, wise when he says something. In the last debate, when he had a runoff debate, he was very clear. He was very open not to attack Governor Brian Kemp and actually make a positive comment. He was open to say, all right, he was open to say that he knew he would be lieutenant governor under, right, a Senate majority Republican. A Republican majority, he would be a Democrat lieutenant governor. Now, that happened right before Casey Cagle. Right before Casey Cagle. Now, when Casey Cagle, can't go there right now, but that happened before, right? Sonny Perdue. Didn't Sonny Perdue have a lieutenant governor? But then he ended up getting a Senate majority. Let's go through that. I may have something off, and God knows somebody out there in Peach World will, analyze me. But let's go back. They don't need Greg Dolezal. Rick Jackson doesn't. John Burns is in charge in the House. John Burns will put his committees together. They'll all get their rewards. They're just rewards. They'll all get them. They'll all get a big thank you. House members will get front row of everything that the governor does and appointments. Let's say, just saying, governor has 4,000 appointments, that you're a House member and you supported him. You can go up and say, Mr. Governor, I've got a friend back home that'd like to be a Superior Court judge. Could you take it into consideration? Sure, no problem. This is how it works. All right. Senate They don't need Greg Dolezal. He's not their best friend. Okay, I'm just saying he's not. Larry Walker may be on a teeter's edge, and Jason Avenatari. They may be on edge of not being in the leadership roles. Don't go back in 2027 and think Jason Avenatari is the majority leader in the Senate and Larry Walker is the Senate pro temp. No, things will be shook up, and the basket will be dropped, and new people may come out when they turn the basket over. So don't think that. Now, Dolezal, they can get him out of the way. I predict that Rick Jackson will not tie himself to anything. Won't do it. I don't think he's going to answer questions when he gets on the road. And don't forget, Keisha Lance Bottoms has challenged him to 3 debates. So when the questions start coming up about Greg Dolezal, and they will, or how are you on Sharia law, this and that, just watch what happens. So Josh McLaren could be lieutenant governor. The reason I had you listen to the entire speech that he gave is so you would see how he's ready to work with others. The adult in the room. He's ready to preside over a Senate with Republican majority. He wanted that visual, and he got it. He got the visual of standing over there, presiding over a Republican majority Senate. You better think this all out. So Rick Jackson could have his leadership in the Senate, his leadership in the House. Josh McLaren can go over and be very nice to Rick Jackson. Rick Jackson's a billionaire. Why wouldn't you be nice to him? Why wouldn't you go over there and say, Mr. Governor, let me see if I can help you on some of this legislation with Democrats? You remember, there's a lot of Democrats. Don't forget. I don't know if you're ready for this. Remember, we'll get into it tomorrow, but remember, Jackson has promised to freeze property tax on day one. Who is obstructing, as they call it? We'll do property tax tomorrow. Who's obstructing? Democrats, right? Who could go in and maybe make the deal they want and get Democrats to get on board? Maybe a Democrat lieutenant governor. I'm just saying, what just happened was a $390,000 complete failure. Stop doing the same thing over, expecting different results. I'm your host, BKP. We're going to get out. All right. I'm going to get out for now. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to come back. And our next segment is going to be the property tax. Then after that, we're going to get into the Trump endorsement, Mike Collins, the Brian Kemp endorsement of Burt Jones. And didn't I tell you for days on end, let that marinate and it would start seeping out? Well, it is, and I can add to it and give you clarification on it. So there you go. All right, folks. You know, I think I want to close with one more thing. If you're a member of the GRA and you wear the badge, there's some great people out there. I hate it, what I had to say today, but I had to say it. And I don't change that, and I won't go back on it. But you guys are some great people. Freedom Caucus, Charlize Byrd, Noel Kahana, you're good people. Clean it up. Let's fight legislation in 2027. All right, let's join the battle together. Let's get Mallory Staples out of the way. No more carrying water for a certain candidate. To preserve our organization, let's do what our organizations are intended to do the right thing for the people. So that one there. And Voter GA, you guys are amazing. And Garland is a very kind man. He is a very kind man. But his day has come. We won't belabor it, but you don't need him carrying the water for lawmakers anymore. You need people are going to say, "Oh, I've got this right here, where Garland has fought this and this and this for years and years." Results. Please go do a gut check on your results, and let's reset, get new leadership, clean these things up, and let's go into 2027 not doing the candidate kiss ass water carrying shuffle. Okay. Until we meet again. Just another nugget of truth. Is that what they say with BKP?